Hello, Steve White, Steve White 89. Well, I'm a little bit behind. I just watched the proper, full trailer for Monster, the Gein story from Netflix. I didn't realise they'd done a proper trailer. I saw the teaser trailer a little while ago and I did a review of that. But this was the full thing. It was very interesting. Now, that there were some fears that they were going to sensationalise the story as soon as they cast Charlie Hunnam, who people think of as this young hot actor because he, started off in the original British Queer as Folk, and he was just hot as. But that's 27 years ago. Madonna wouldn't want him now. Sorry, I'm just thinking back to that story where Madonna invited him around to her home after he just arrived in LA to work there, and that story is a very interesting one. But yeah, from the teaser trailer, we can see that he does, look like Eddie. They're trying to create this character. They're not just doing the sensationalized, glamorized sort of Hollywood version where he's all young and sexy or something. That's not what they're doing. So there's that. But there is a scene that I do find a bit worrying. There's a scene that didn't happen where we see him kidnapping a beautiful young blonde woman, tying her to a chair and, torturing her with showing her the dead bodies and everything. And he never killed any young sexy women. So maybe it's a fantasy, because he had plenty of magazines and things like this, so maybe that's what it was. But it is a concern that maybe if they're dealing with fantasy and imagination, they may be creating scenarios that are just sensationalist, that aren't actually, what happened. So that's a bit of a worry. In case you don't know the story of Ed Gein, it's fairly simple. He grew up with the traditional, stereotypical, classic, dominating religious mother, played by Laurie Metcalf, which I had no idea she was playing the mother. That takes it to another level, and I was sort of thinking, this will be cool, I'll watch it later. It's I don't want to wait. I might have to... I'm not paying for Netflix because I have philosophical problems with them. They put up a documentary, which was a PDF file, sort of film taking advantage of young girls. So I haven't watched this, Cuties. I haven't watched Netflix since then. I cut the cord with them. I used to have them they were my regular monthly subscription, just to have a streaming service. So I just had one on hand when I wanted to watch stuff and didn't feel like watching TV or a DVD. But yeah, so I don't think I can go back to them. So I might have to go sailing the high seas to see this show, because I don't think I can wait for DVD. Assuming it even comes out on DVD, because Netflix doesn't always do everything on DVD, but some other people do it for them. So maybe I don't know. Either way, it looks amazing. Now, as I was saying, what Eddie Gein did was he had the stereotypical mother, and he apparently killed his mother. Killed his brother because he criticised his mother, and he lived alone with her until she died, and then he lived alone after her. But he found himself some company, the bodies of ladies who had been recently buried. He would go and dig up women who'd recently died. Ones that resembled his mother or reminded him of his mother, who was a stocky sort of heavy woman. And yeah, he basically took the bodies and prepared the skin and turned these women into household objects and costumes to wear. He literally had face masks and whole body stockings basically made out of women's skin and women's parts. He had he had a box full of clitorises. He had a belt made out of nipples. He had chairs upholstered in human skin. He had lamp shades made out of human skin. He had soup bowls made out of skulls. He just basically sat around all day on his farm, thinking of ways to use women's bodies that he pulled out of the earth. So when he was discovered, it was just like nothing anyone had seen before. Now, so far as his crimes, though, like I said, he didn't kill any young sexy women. He killed the owner of a tavern in the town, who reminded him of his mother, who had a bit of a reputation for having a bit of a life before she moved to that town. He killed her, and then he got away with that, though, although he literally, when she went missing, he joked that she was, dead at his house. And people thought he was joking, but she literally was dead at his house because he killed her. And then the next woman he killed was the mother of the sheriff, who just happened to run the local store. And he killed her for the same reason, apparently, that he reminded him of his mother. But the sheriff, of course, just, used his position to just get into Eddie's house. And they found the mother, and there's a fairly horrifying shot of him doing a primal scream when he sees his mother, who has been hung up by her ankles with her legs spread and cut down from the middle and gutted, basically. So he basically walks in on finding her body freshly gutted, and it's pretty horrible. So there were some concerns that they were going to sensationalize stuff, and we do see him dressed in drag, essentially, and there are some worries that they're going to demonize gay people, trans people, drag queens and so forth, because this man basically dressed up as a woman and did it with lady parts as opposed to, makeup and dresses. But they do have a scene where he is wearing women's lingerie, and as far as I know, he never did that, but the idea that he would have done that before actually, creating women's lingerie that's literally made out of women isn't that far of a stretch. The assumption was that he actually cannibalized women and explored them sexually, but he said he didn't, but, do we believe him? I'm not sure. So they do show some scenes that imply things that maybe didn't happen or we're not sure have happened, but they may also be fantasies. He may have just been fantasizing about kidnapping a sexy young lady and doing stuff with her. So he may just be seeing his fantasies, which is kind of understandable, etc., whatever. But if it's just a way to show things that didn't actually happen to make, a trailer that looks a lot more sexier and whatever, I don't know. But it looks good, and I don't want to wait. But I think I'm probably going to have to, because I'm not buying Netflix, and it's just too much hassle. Sailing the seven seas is just too much hassle. There's quality and consistency and viruses, and it's just a hassle. I don't really do it anymore. And I've just discovered this thing called patience. I just wait for something to come out on DVD. I'm busy enough. But unfortunately Netflix doesn't always do things on DVD. So I feel like I missed a few important points I should have said right away. So the concerns that this show was going to be sensationalized and all that with this hot young actor and the glamorous version of Ed Gein, I think that was an assumption that, there doesn't appear to be any evidence that they've gone that way. And the thing itself, aside from this one scene which I know didn't happen, as long as it's just one sort of fantasy scene of him doing something like that, which is understandable, he would have fantasized about things like that before actually doing what he did. As long as they're not using it too much, just as a way to show things that never actually happened, I don't think it'll be an issue. Overall, it's pretty good. Like there's the scene of him like dancing in the woman's suit, which is like horrifying, and there's a scene where he's actually just in drag, and he's dancing in the living room, and someone knocks on the door, and he turns around, and he's got the woman's face mask on. So there are moments like that which are just pretty good. I can't think of anything else. Of course, there are shots of him in lingerie. It has this sort of satin, sort of modern, sort of corseted green lingerie. Like I said, he may have experimented with this stuff, but there's nothing to actually say that he actually did. So that might just be an excuse to have a controversial image of a man dressed in women's lingerie because of all the anti-trans and anti-drag queen sentiment. I do worry they're courting that sort of thing and capitalising on that and exploiting that, which is not good. And the other thing is they also show posters of him in that green corset with a chainsaw. Now, Ed Gein never killed anyone with a chainsaw. They're just trying to throw back to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and the fact that he inspired Leatherface and Norman Bates and the guy from Silence of the Lambs. I've forgotten his name, Hannibal Lecter. Although he wasn't proven to be a cannibal, it's suspected that he did eat some of these lady parts, some of these lady fingers. I think they were his favourite. That's the joke. what's Eddie Gein's favourite biscuit? Ladyfingers. A lot of Geiners out there, which are like Edward Gein jokes, which originated from his hometown, of course. But yeah, I'm just waffling at this point. I'm going to go. Feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think. I think it looks good. I'm relieved it doesn't look like they're doing any of the things they were accused of doing in the beginning. I do worry that they may be playing too much with some scenes that are fantasy just for the sake of it, but they don't seem that out of place as long as if they're just, like one or two little scenes, that'll be fine. But if it's a running part, and yeah, so I can see where it could go, but it's hard to tell from a trailer, which is 2 minutes long, because they could be like a couple of shots, and that's the scene, that's it. Who knows. But I'm going to go. Feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think of the trailer and how Monster's looking.